Well, hello, this is Amy with Table Flipping Housewife. I have something really different and really fun to share with you today. I went thrifting with Shannon Wilcox of Black Sheep House. And what we're doing is we're looking for items that we can upgrade to some high-end looking DIY dupes. Now, I ended up buying this particular vase, and my inspiration for it is this vessel from Pottery Barn for $150. That I'm not going to spend, but $19 I will. The other project I'm working on today is this Lane cedar chest. Now, I had some issues with it when I was fixing it up, so I went online for some inspiration and found this beautiful Madison Park cabinet. But at $514, I don't think so. But $65, heck yeah. Now, Shannon found some other fun things.
Got all sorts of stuff in here, my goodness. Why are you digging through it?
But at a different thrift store, she found this coffee table she thought would work in her own home. She did a jig. Her inspiration is this beautiful coffee table, but at $4,800, I don't think so. But at $25, yes. So we purchased our items, loaded them up in my car, and set off for our prospective homes to get started. I played around with different paint colors and materials to try to replicate the color and texture of that inspiration vase. This one, though, has more of the off-white texture in it, just like my inspiration. So this is the route I'm going to go. I'm using chalk paint. I think you're going to find that it's going to go on the vase easier if you want to replicate this look. It's at my local Walmart, and I know it can be ordered online at Walmart. I'm going to be using a total of 3, but I'm going to start with sandstone. I'm going to paint it on the entire vase because that's going to be my base color. I'm using a chalk paint brush, but you can use any other bristle brush. You'll be just fine. You may notice I'm stippling, kind of pouncing with my paintbrush to get it inside some of the pits and crevices that are already in the vase. Other than that, I'm just painting it on. I'm having difficulty turning the vase around, and then I thought, well, duh, go get one of your Lazy Susans. I pick them up at Goodwill all the time. So it's on a Lazy Susan now, and it's making it much easier to get all sides and around the vase. Don't be alarmed if you're painting it on your vase and you're thinking, Amy, I'm not getting any coverage, because you will on your second coat, as you're about to see. I actually put a third coat on the bottom of the vase because it was originally so dark there, and I want to start with a uniform coverage of the sandstone. The next color of Waverly paint I'm going to use is Plaster. It's a creamy off-white. It's a real pretty color. I'm going to be stippling it on with this wallpaper brush, so I'll need to remove most of the paint from the brush before I actually start dappling it onto the vase. Now it's going to take a while, so I will just show you in this one spot where I would want to stop it. But of course I'll have to go all the way around. Because I'm stippling it on, it is raising it quite a bit as opposed to brushing it, and that's going to help get the texture that I want. This next step is going to be with Waverly's hazelnut. I'm going to put that into a cup, add just a smidge of water because this is very thick paint, and then I'm going to apply it with the toothbrush. Y'all, look how long I've been holding on to this toothbrush. Our boys are now 26. This was one of theirs. Dr. Seuss. So I'm going to be using my thumb to flick the paint off of my toothbrush onto here. I don't want big blobs, which is why I'm not going to stipple it with the wallpaper brush. I really want a very fine spatter. Step 3 is to go back to plaster, and this time I'm going to sponge it on. I have the vase upside down. I'm going to do the base first, and then I'm going to turn it over. All right, step 4 and the last step. I'm going to keep sponging on plaster, but I will be adding some of the hazelnut to it. And this will just tie it all together. Now let's take a closer look at my Lane cedar chest. It was gifted to me by a friend and I was excited. I've always wanted to work on one. And this one in particular had some engraved designs on the sides which I thought were intriguing. I was hoping this would be solid wood so that I could, or at least wood veneer so that I could strip it down, but it wasn't. It is completely laminate, covered by many, many layers of paint. Now the handles, the original handles were included in the drawer. Once I was able to remove all that paint, I was able to clean them up as well with some gold spray paint. One of the wonderful surprises of this was that I found the key to the lock. Now I am planning to resell this item, so I know by law I have to remove the lock. But how cool to be able to provide the lock and key to whoever buys it. Now, the first thing I did was I scraped off the dry rotted felt from the drawer, and then I knew before I did anything else that I needed to test it for lead. And fortunately, it had no lead, so I was able to start using my carbide scraper. There are so many brushstroke marks in this piece that I want to get rid of them. And I might as well just scrape through the paint while I can. Once this piece has had most of the paint scraped off, I will sand it to prepare it for primer and paint. I started to sand the piece with 150 grit sandpaper, and I realized early on that I was going to have problems with the paint that was caked in these areas. I couldn't pick it out. I couldn't hand sand it out. So I knew that would become an issue, but nonetheless, I went ahead and just sanded the rest of the piece smooth. I tested a small area of this primer and it didn't scratch off, so I went ahead and primed the entire piece. It's already tinted with rugged tan. And as you can see, the moment I put primer on the piece, it just brings to light all that paint clogged in there. I knew I would need to cover it, so I went online for some inspiration. And that's when I found the Madison Park cabinet. Now, how was I going to get that textured front? With textured paintable wallpaper. Now I'm using Hodge Podge to adhere it to the chest. I put down some blue painter's tape just so I wouldn't get Hodge Podge where it wasn't supposed to go. And I slathered it all over the chest where the wallpaper would be. I also applied it to the back of the wallpaper. Now I am going to be securing the edges with some square dowels, but nonetheless, I made sure that I got Hodge Podge along all the edges and the corners of the wallpaper. When it was in place, I used a clean, dry rag to squeeze and rub out all of the wrinkles and the air bubbles. I removed the tape when I was done and did the same thing on the other side. I bought these miter snips at Home Depot. They're by Rigid. They are my absolutely favorite tool at the moment. These are so much fun. I've measured and I need this one cut on a bevel right there. So what you do is it's set on 45 degrees right here, and you place the wood or trim right in here and you hold it, you brace it against this piece here and you snip. And it cuts like butter. And I'm going to cut 4 more pieces for the other side. I've sanded all of the wood filler and dusted it off, and now I'm priming the square dowels. I went ahead and primed the wallpaper as well. I don't know if this needs primer. I haven't seen other people use primer on the wallpaper, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Now, does it make sense aesthetically to just add 2 panels on both ends? I don't know. I didn't want to cover the whole front of the piece. I thought that would be too much. And essentially, again, it's just to cover up that design element that was on both ends. So I guess if that was acceptable, I hope this will be too. When I was removing the legs to get a good sanding job on them, I noticed that something was amiss. So I drilled some pocket holes and secured it in place with some 1 1/4 inch screws. This is my favorite white dusty cloth by Valspar. I'm filtering it into the canister and then thinning it with a little bit of water so that it comes out of my sprayer easily. I tested the spray pattern onto, in this case, a lawn bag. And then I sprayed on the first coat of paint. It seems 3 coats of paint did the trick. I probably didn't need that 3rd coat, but it was in my canister, and I realized after spraying the 2nd coat that I had completely forgotten about the drawer. Drawer's now painted, I've brought the piece inside, and now it's time to start the Pottery Barn finish on the top. So this is the whole reason why I primed the top and ended up doing the whole thing in this primer tinted with Rugged Tan, because Rugged Tan is one of the base colors that you often see people use, especially Shannon Wilcox at Black Sheep House, as a base to her Pottery Barn finish. I'm going to be using Rust-Oleum's Transformation Glaze in Java Brown. I prefer to brush it on, so this is a designated brush. Then you will definitely need a deck brush. It's very dense, it has very soft bristles. It gives an interesting striation to your wood grain you're creating. And then my next favorite is a wallpaper brush. This piece, after I scraped all the paint off, showed a lot of indentations in the wood. It's like almost like scratch marks, but just embedded into the wood. This technique does hide flaws pretty well on your pieces. All right. I don't know if you can see, but these weird stains were popping through, so I put a 2nd layer of glaze on top. The weird stains on the top have been disguised with a 2nd coat of glaze. So because it's rather dark at this point, I am dry brushing some different colors on just to give some more depth to the wood grain. So I've given my chip brush a good hair trimming, so I think that helps to have very few bristles. The handles had been spray painted with some beautiful gold paint. So here I'm digging through my mom's old button box looking for a gold button that could fill the cavity that was left after I removed the lock. And I chose this one. I ended up putting a little bit of gold gilding wax on it, and then I temporarily secured it with a wire and dowel. I want the owner to be able to easily remove this if they want to put the lock back in the piece. Shannon started sanding her coffee table with 120 and then switched up to a 220 grit to get the existing finish off. She found that as it was drying, it wasn't as dark as her inspiration piece. So she mixed the transformation glaze as well as this Rust-Oleum Kona colored glaze together to get a darker stain. After that coat of stain dried, she did apply a couple coats of a poly. Her full tutorial can be found on her channel at Black Sheep House. Shannon and I had a really good time with this. We enjoyed working together, and we were wondering, would you like to see another collaborative video? Maybe something similar to this, or maybe we can exchange dressers or side tables we've had in inventory and just haven't been motivated to do. Maybe we can exchange those and do each other's pieces. Give us your thoughts in comments below. Now let's look at the result of our high-end DIY dupes.